Welcome back to the official Beast Lab. This is Gurenlian. I'm here with Nicki Torreggiani today. If she looks familiar, you probably have seen her on the Movement Index. She is our resident professional Olympic weightlifter for all the Movement Index. I want to welcome you to the Beast Lab.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so give us a little rundown, your background of Olympic weightlifting, how you kind of got into it, and then like where it took you from there.
Sure. So I love telling this story. I had no idea what this sport even was when I started. I was 17 years old and I wanted to get in shape for Bahamas for my high school senior trip. That's where it started.
I mean, it's pretty standard tale. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone just wants, it always starts as something selfish, I say, and then ends up being a little bit more selfless or something a little bit more passion driven. So I wanted to look better for a vacation. I was in a cab with my brother and one of his friends who ended up being a personal trainer at a local gym. And just, he went on a whim. He was like, do you want to get in shape? Which I was like, he must be reading my mind because I didn't know where to start. I had Bahamas coming up in like 4 months. So he brought me to his gym, at the time was Transform Fitness in Eastchester. It was located in Eastchester at the time. And I thought I was gonna walk into like what I saw on social media, like one-on-one, like the cute little movements, but it was a class style, barbell and conditioning classes, kind of CrossFit-y style. Like it was a mix of everything, but that's where I learned what the Olympic weightlifting movements were, and it just became a whole ordeal for me. Like it became less about looking better for a vacation and became more about, oh no, this is a sport that I can see myself doing for the long run.
Very cool.
Yeah.
But did you play sports leading up to that, like when you were younger?
I dabbled in a few things. Like I grew up a dancer for 8 years on and off, and then whatever my older brother did growing up, like I did gymnastics, I saw him do karate, I wanted to do karate. Then he did baseball, I wanted to do softball. And I probably got like a year in for like every sport, and then once I hit high school, I was just not into it. So
wow, that's interesting because that's what I try to get my son into. Everyone's like, is he going to play lacrosse? And I'm like, no, I just want him to lift and stay away from getting hurt. So once you kind of got into the class thing, when did you decide that you really wanted to take the Olympic weightlifting a little bit more seriously?
So I did the class thing for the rest of my senior year of high school. And then it was like the only training style I really knew. So when I went away to college, that's just how I trained, even though I wasn't following anything specific. And then about 2 years into college, I heard of a local gym that was just specified in Olympic weightlifting. And I didn't know it existed. I wish I knew sooner. So it was about sophomore year of college. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go there during my breaks when I'm home from college. And that's where it started.
Where'd you go to school?
SUNY Cortland.
Okay, so what was the gym called?
New York Weightlifting Academy. That was home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in Thornwood.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what made you, like, when did you start doing it and then you were like, you know what, I want to compete. Like, I really want to, I want to test my mettle out there.
So I started going to the gym and it was probably no more than a year that I was like getting the itch. Because I was nervous about it, but I saw everyone on the local level going for competitions, even if they weren't comfortable with the movements. And it was just a very welcoming environment to compete. Like I didn't have to be at a certain level. So within the first year, I was just like, all right, let's give this a try. My first competition I did non-sanctioned, which means like I didn't even become a part of the federation yet. Like I didn't pay my dues or whatever, just to test it out, and then that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then like when you finished that competition and you kind of like saw where you stacked up, what was the feeling after that competition? Was it like, I might be in over my head? Was it like, wow, now I'm hungry for more? Like what exactly, like what was the feeling after that?
So my division, like the non-sanctioned, went right after the sanctioned. And as I was sitting there watching the sanctioned, I was like, I could have just paid the due. Like I didn't understand, like everyone was kind of on the same level, even though it was my first competition. So after I finished that competition, I was like, I should have just paid the dues and jumped right in. Like I was so hungry for more. Wow. So hungry for more.
That's pretty awesome. So knowing what you know now, like through your training, throughout those years, I know you and I touched a little bit about it when we talked about you were recording some of the videos that we have on the index, but like give us a little bit of rundown from the beginning of your training for Olympic weightlifting to like your knowledge base now.
So Olympic weightlifting, it's something that takes years and years of practice, right? So it's two movements. It's your snatch and your clean and jerk when it comes to competition lifts, but there's so much that entails. So you have your squats, your presses, your deadlifts, and all different combinations of those movements within training. So for me, it was more about a slow start, and throughout the years of training, it was like anywhere between 1 to 3 hour sessions of just low repetition movements, high weights, and just pushing that envelope.
Wow. And then throughout your experience, because I know like Olympic weightlifting actually has one of the lowest injury rates amongst sports, but when you talk about some of the difficulties in going through your training, like what was some of the stuff like sticking point wise, like shoulder, is it a back thing? Like what do you see typically out there for people that get into Olympic weightlifting? Because I know like for face-offs in lacrosse, it's shoulder, low back, and knee. Like that's our problem issues.
So I think a lot stems from mobility issues and rushing into training without having proper mobility. Like I even look back on my journey, and I think I could have had a safer or cleaner journey if I focused first on the mobility and strength aspect and not jumped right into the technical work. I see too many people jump into Olympic weightlifting and just want to touch that barbell and want to get all of that technique movement down without having a strong foundation of strength and a strong foundation of mobility. So a lot of shoulder injuries, knee injuries are very popular with Olympic weightlifting if you're not warming up properly. And that's another thing, is like the warm-up aspect of it. I think that's a huge thing to highlight for this sport.
Okay. So from a byproduct standpoint, if I'm an athlete, I don't want to be an Olympic weightlifter, but I want to use Olympic weightlifting into my programming. What kind of benefits could I see if I incorporate Olympic weightlifting into my
There's
training?
such dynamic movements, especially if you're in a power sport, they translate over perfectly. That's why you see football teams using cleans. Both of those movements, like the snatch and the clean and jerk, because you have to utilize the hips so much and generate so much power and force in such a short duration of time, they translate over to those fast twitch movements that you see in sports.
Yeah, it's funny because when I got into Olympic weightlifting, it wasn't until after I graduated from Penn State. We did almost exclusively HIIT training when I was at Penn State. And I remember going back and talking to my strength coach and be like, why didn't we ever do Olympic weightlifting? I was like, I just started getting into it and I automatically feel more powerful. I feel more explosive. He's like, could you imagine trying to get 30 lacrosse players to learn, clean and jerk? He's like, no, it would never happen. I got half the guys trying to sneak out of the gym as it is. It's like, so, there's other ways to create force production and power, like, one-legged box step up, stuff like that, without having to do cleans. So that's actually a good point. The limiting factor is the technique. But what I love about Olympic weightlifting is, unlike a curl where if you cheat you can get more weight up, or a squat, if you don't go all the way down you can get more weight, you can actually do more weight the better your technique is in Olympic weightlifting.
Crazy. It's so crazy. It's so technical. It makes you slow down in the process of doing it and really make that mind-muscle connection when you're moving.
Yeah.
Which I also think kind of translates over well to sports. Like it just makes you more present in what you're doing.
100%.
Yeah.
Now I know for anybody who's a face-off guy in lacrosse, our technique is always repetitive. The ball's always in the same spot. We're always lining up the same way. But what I loved about Olympic weightlifting is it really prepared me to train athletes for face-offs because it was very similar.
Very similar.
Teaching an athlete to not worry about how hard he's kind of trying to jump on top of the ball or clamp, and instead getting him to dial in his biomechanics to streamline the process is exactly what Olympic weightlifting was. I remember when I first started trying, everything you do when you're first trying, you're trying to muscle up the bar, trying to basically bunny hop reverse curl, right? And then all of a sudden, that first time you hit triple extension, the bar jumps up, you're like, oh my God. So once you really got into Olympic weightlifting, tell me about how you, like your first experience with CrossFit, because I know we talked about it like for a second when we were doing the videos, but I want to hear about your journey from Olympic weightlifting to CrossFit.
So Olympic weightlifting was about a 6 to 7 year journey for me. I didn't think at the time that I would ever make the switch to a new sport. Because of my history with sports when I was younger, it was like one of my biggest regrets as a kid, like not having one specialization. So my goal was, when I found a sport that I fell in love with, I would stick with it until it made me famous, in a sense. Like I just wanted that one sport that I was known for. But being around this area and then starting to date someone who's so passionate about CrossFit, I was just exposed to it and the community. And little by little, like while I was doing Olympic weightlifting with my coach, I would secretly start doing some CrossFit workouts. And my coach was the strictest person. He wouldn't let me walk extra than he prescribed. So I seriously was keeping this on the DL when I did this. And it was just a different stimulus. Like I think I tried 2 CrossFit workouts in the past year before starting. And then past July, so 2021, I competed in my first national event, which was USAW Nationals, which was a pretty big deal to make.
Yeah.
But because of the pandemic, I did have bad luck with coaching. My coach went completely like off radar, wouldn't come out of his house. And then I tried to seek out some online coaches. This sport is just so technically driven that personally I couldn't benefit from uploading videos and waiting a week to hear from someone.
Yeah.
So my boyfriend kept chipping away at me, saying, why don't you just give this a try, And he's such a great coach himself that I was like, you know what? I hung up the cleats, as you would say, for a little bit, and I was like, I'm just gonna give this a try, give it like a month and see what happens. The transfer of skill couldn't have been more perfect, because in CrossFit, you are doing Olympic weightlifting movements. So that aspect, strong off the bat, which is a strong start because that's the hardest part, in my opinion, of CrossFit.
Yeah.
But then there's also gymnastics, there's monostructural, so there's like the cardio piece, running, swimming, biking, everything combined. That's what CrossFit is. It's like finding the fittest of them all.
Yeah.
But like I said, the Olympic weightlifting transferred over great. So I've been doing it since last July.
And what do you think? Like, tell us, like right now, like where you are. Did you, like when you thought about CrossFit, because everyone has preconceived notions, I know I did, to where you are now, like what's different than what you thought it was?
So it's funny, Olympic weightlifting has a one-sided fight battle between CrossFit. Olympic weightlifting or Olympic weightlifters always trash on CrossFitters because they would say it's unsafe, you're more prone to injury. Technically, because you see people just moving the bar so fast, snatch and clean and jerk, it's just not correct in their eyes. When I finally gave it a try, I was like, this is a whole new world. And there's so much benefit to CrossFit that I never received from Olympic weightlifting, mentally and physically. So I would say the biggest misconception I had on CrossFit was that the community was filled with a bunch of people who didn't know what they were doing and were just throwing around weights for fun. Getting behind a coach who actually knows how to teach every aspect of CrossFit the correct way, which might be a little bit hard to find because it is, you know, it's such a popular thing that so many people can just be a CrossFit coach if they went for their L1 or L2. Being behind a coach who actually knows how to teach everything, I actually am less injured now than I was when I was in Olympic weightlifting. Under some coaches, I have to say, because I've had a few coaches, different coaches in Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm not pushing the envelope as often with the weights that I do choose.
Okay. So pros and cons, I mean, obviously you can't possibly get the same energy systems or cardio training from Olympic weightlifting that you could from CrossFit. When I think of CrossFit, I have seen some of the people that have some of the best form when it comes to snatches and clean and jerks. And then you test them and you say, how many can you do in whatever amount of time? And you just see the form completely go out the shitter, right? It's just like, and you're like shocked. You're like, I've never seen you do a poor snatch in your life, but you're trying to get it for how much time? Like, when you are watching that, or like, how do you stop yourself from completely letting yourself go with that form when you know that you're trying to compete against something like that?
It's funny because I struggled with this a lot in the beginning. Especially because I have been singularly working towards a power-driven sport for so long. And now, not only do I have to not worry about my technique being A1, but I can't worry about using too much. I actually can't utilize too much power because it's going to tire me out quickly.
You gotta pace yourself, right?
The whole pacing game and going for multiple reps and time, it was a whole shock to my system. And it took a few months to kind of crack me down to like stop worrying about form. I mean, you know, not even like, I'm not like, it's only been a few months and still my coach Tommy, my boyfriend, says, You have to stop stepping up to the bar, setting up, stretching up. Like you have to just go.
Yeah.
So I'm still struggling with that transfer over to just not caring as much.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They're not in CrossFit. That you can step into a competition and they can say 1 rep max on your snatch, and that's completely Olympic weightlifting. Or they can say, grab the bar, it's 55 pounds, and do this for time, and you just can't worry about your form. So it's a whole different ballpark, yeah.
Now, I can totally see from a mental training standpoint, that has to be incredibly difficult. Like that has to really, you talked about the pros, like the positive differences from what you thought. Mental training, I mean, that is like the epitome of it. Like as an athlete, I'm preparing for, like I do a lot of visualization. And for face-offs and everything, like I've always prided myself when I played on when I got to the field, I knew everything about my opponent. I knew how he was going to react to everything. I knew how he would act if he lost a few face-offs, if he won a few, if the referee let him cheat, if he didn't. It would have, if I showed up and they're like, today we're just going to jump ball it, like I would short circuit. So how do you start training yourself for not knowing what the hell you're doing from one day to another?
It's still a learning journey for me. I haven't mastered that yet. When I tell you I'm the same way, like visualizing a competition where I did 2 lifts, 3 attempts for each. So easy to visualize because I know exactly, it's a controlled environment. I'm stepping up to the bar. I know exactly what I have to do. Maybe the weight might feel heavier, but I know exactly how it's supposed to feel by the second. Stepping into a competition, I might not know the event before I even get there, and an hour before they tell me, and then this is it. So it's funny that you brought that up. I actually, I'm competing in Wadapalooza this week in Miami, and they just announced within the past week 4 of the workouts. We don't know how many workouts they're going to be. I know I'm competing over a 3-day span. They announced 4 of the workouts, which that means I got to test them out this past weekend, and one is an Olympic weightlifting. It's not Olympic weightlifting. It's cleans and clean squats and shoulder to overhead, they call it.
Okay.
So any way you want.
Any way you want to get it up?
Any way you want to get it up. So it could be push press, it could be push jerk, it could be split jerk, but there's so much that goes behind it. So I tested it out about 3 to 5 times. The first time I tested it out, because I'm going so fast, by the time I hit the 3rd bar, I completely messed up what the workout was supposed to be. Second time, completely messed up what the workout was supposed to be. Third time, I was so gassed by this. It was only a minute of work that I couldn't even handle the light weight that was on the bar. Oh, wow. So it's still a journey. Like I'm still learning, and I've always been the type of person that needs everything controlled around me to work at my best. So now putting myself in an environment like this, it's just my mental game has been a learning. My mental game hasn't been as strong as it was in weightlifting, but it is my goal to kind of get control of that.
Yeah. That's incredible. So Wadapalooza, a 3-day event. Is that anybody can register, or do you have to be you have to qualify for that? So
there was an online qualifier about 2 months ago. We kind of entered in as a joke, not a joke, but just like no expectation. We didn't even think I was going to make it. And we went for the intermediate division. So there's scaled and beginner, intermediate, RX, and then elite. We went for intermediate just to see how I kind of match up and stack up against, people in my division. And I would say about 1,000 people entered videos. They take top 40, and I got top 10.
Whoa.
I came in 10th.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty big deal.
That is a pretty big deal.
But only on the intermediate level. So I'm still new.
That's pretty sick. And you've been doing CrossFit for how long?
It's going to be, so since last July. How many months is that? 5 months? No.
Yeah, it's about 5, 6 months.
5, 6 months, yeah.
Wow, so less than a year and you're top 10 intermediate as far as going into this competition. Good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So now, because you train too, right? So if somebody wanted to get into CrossFit, what's the difference between CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting in how many days a week you would train, the duration of the workouts, etc.?
So someone starting out in CrossFit, I would say doing like 1 day on, 1 day off, just to kind of get your body acclimated to that environment. Olympic weightlifting, I was always taught less is more. So throughout my 7 years of lifting, I never trained more than 3 days. That's not going to be everyone, but I never trained more than 3 days a week with rest in between. CrossFit, it's a slow build. A lot of people want to jump into CrossFit. They see people coming to class or posting about class every single day, and they want to jump into that. I think that you need that 1 day on, 1 day off until your body starts to get used to it, and then you build from there. And I would never recommend more than 5 days a week for CrossFit with like a 3 day on, 1 day off kind of schedule, just to give your body needs that rest.
Yeah.
So.
And then if you compete, so you're competing in CrossFit now. Like how many days a week are you competing at right now? Like when you're training?
When I train, so I train 3 days on, 1 day off, then I'll do 2 days on, 1 day off. So I do 5 days a week, but picking up towards the CrossFit Open, it's called, which happens once a year, my training gets a little bit more intense, so I'll do 2 days. Wow. So I'll come in, my training session will last 2 to 3 hours, and then I'll come back at night and get a second session in. Wow,
so you're just doing this kind of full time right now.
Yeah, that's, and I think that's why I progressed to what I progressed to so quickly, because of, I mean, it's a full commitment thing. I actually told myself, if I get into CrossFit, I'm giving up like my social life, I'm giving up drinking, I'm giving up this, because I know that my body is going to need a different type of rest, and I want to go all the way with this.
I mean, that's discipline, and it's funny, every single video I do, it always ends up coming back to discipline, regardless of what type of person doesn't matter if you're a mindful coach, doesn't matter if you're a strength coach, a PT, anybody, we always bring it back to discipline. So when you are, now you're a trainer too. Now when you train, are you doing specifically Olympic weightlifting when you're training clients?
When I'm training clients, you would think, because that's my passion, that's my specialty, but it's less common. Like, not a lot of people know, even though that's what I promote on my page and that's what I do. A lot of people are a little bit timid of the whole barbell work. Same thing with CrossFit. A lot of people are a little timid just jumping into a CrossFit class. So I have about only 1 to 2 clients that do Olympic weightlifting with me. My entire other client base is just individuals wanting to get healthier.
Get healthier?
Yeah.
Yeah. So give me like, if I'm a client who's coming in, where are you training out of?
I train out of the Body Blueprint in Pelham.
Oh, okay. So if I came in as a new client, and I said, look, I want to be in shape, but that CrossFit thing's not really for me. I don't want to get into serious Olympic weightlifting. I just want to get into shape. Like, just put us through a process that you would go through with a client.
So first thing I would do is gauge what exactly in shape meant to them. So is it you want to lose body fat, you want to lose weight, you want to see a different number on the scale? What's your reasoning behind it? Like, is it for the benefit of just feeling better about yourself? Is it for your family? Kind of find what their why is and make that the driving force. And then I would go into a consultation. Our first session would be just seeing what they can handle form-wise. I start from the very basics of your squat, your press, your deadlift. A lot of people that come into me have never done any of this with weight. So just kind of checking out form, seeing where to start, and then building off there. I like to make my programs similar to what you would find in a CrossFit class in a sense. Like, I'll start with a strong strength piece and then start to implement some kind of conditioning piece, because I've seen so much benefit in my own progress with the conditioning, and quicker progress at that.
So when you talk conditioning, because I know a lot of people, we talk about how the fitness industry kind of takes strength training terms and kind of perverts them, right? Like I mentioned HIIT training at Penn State. HIIT from an Instagram account is not HIIT in the actual strength training world. Like just jumping around for a given amount of time is not HIIT. When you say conditioning, like what kind of stuff would you add into the workout from a conditioning standpoint?
So conditioning can be anything from circuits with dumbbells, just moving your body at lighter weight once someone's ready for it. That's why I say it takes a little time to get someone into that. Or it could be a piece on the rower or a piece on the bike mixed with the weights. So just getting kind of a different stimulus from all different types of weights or pieces of equipment that will challenge someone. Like, my strength program builds, it's always a progressive overload. But my conditioning piece will always change so that the body's always guessing. It's always changing up.
Oh, very cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so you scale out the progressions of someone's loads or volume, but then when it comes to the actual conditioning, you like to keep them guessing a little bit.
Keep them guessing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was at school, we would have one day a week where we would do a team lift, and I always got up like pissed off because I'm like, we have no idea what we're doing. Like we'd come in from practice and we'd walk in and the first thing you do is you look around, oh crap, the plate's on the ground, that means we're doing plate pushes, and you just see the trainers are just sitting there smirking when you come in. And it took me a really long time to realize that they were training us mentally to be prepared. Like we have our cards for our certain days when we're doing our individuals, but they wanted the team training after practice when you're tired to be, how are you going to react under pressure? How are you going to react when something that you don't like happens? It took me a long time to like appreciate that.
100%. And I see with my own clients, like the strength piece for me, building upon what we've worked on previously in like cycles, is super important because there's so many styles or gyms that are more like boutique fitness where you are doing something different on a week-to-week basis and you're not actually seeing progress because you're never building off of anything that you've previously learned. So that piece will always remain the same.
The muscle confusion myth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the conditioning, everyone is a little scared coming into it with me, but I see the response to it, and my clients don't realize it, but the response to strength is different to the response of conditioning. It's just that like when you're done, just how proud you feel because you know how much you didn't want to do it while you're doing it,
That's a good point, yeah.
But I always tell people who come to me, I will never give you anything you can't handle.
It's funny, I said that on a daily basis when I was a strength coach. I always say, like, look, man, I'm looking at your chart. I know what you can do.
Yeah.
You just have to find out. Like, you have to like realize it. Yeah. And what I like too is, I never gave my clients cardio. Like, I liked the term conditioning or energy system training better, because so many people, like myself, I hear cardio. I'm like, dude, like, I'm not gonna go jog for 5 miles. Like, it's not gonna happen. But I always tell people, like, there's so many different ways to get your conditioning and get your cardio fix while lifting weights. You can shorten your rest periods. You can do a circuit, like you said. Give me a couple of your, I'm not going to say your clients' favorites because they're probably their least favorite, but give me a couple of your favorite heavy hitters when it comes to conditioning at the end of a training session.
These are your set exercises to do. I'm going to start a clock. Here are your reps that you have to hit. You know your pace that you have to get it done. Let's see how much time it's going to take you.
I love that.
I see with that it's a way better motivator. And even if it shocks me every time because I have clients who I would never even think to be competitive against themselves or want that. And they're so engaged because they just want the best time. And if we ever bring it up in the future, and that's one way I'll test it, if we ever bring it up in the future with the same exact sets and exercises, they're trying to beat their time. So it's a way to see progression within themselves, and it's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I used to do something called the kettlebell burpee pyramid. Real simple, 10 of each, and you just go back and forth until you hit one, and we would just time it. And you would see people that you would complain about almost everything, but then they would like go hard to try to beat that every time. And it's so cool to unlock that competitive spirit in somebody and see the confidence kind of shoot out.
100%.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome. So right now with CrossFit, because I had this discussion with Andrew Apt about when I was playing lacrosse, like I would never consider getting into a CrossFit class just because I was like, I don't know if it correlates because a lot of sports are so much about specialization. How do you feel about using CrossFit as an athlete for a different sport, but to use it as a training method for your sport?
I think that it has a great transfer over to sport because of that conditioning piece and because of that, the power of the Olympic weightlifting. You also have building of strength. So you see your squats, you see back, front, you see bench press, you see all of this work kind of combined. But I think the biggest determining factor is who's leading the class. So it just depends on where. Like, Absolute is a great spot for it. I'm biased because my boyfriend Tommy is the coach there.
Yeah.
So he makes the programs, but knowing the program behind there, he'll never allow someone to come into the class and do something that they can't handle. And everything is about education. It's not just like, this is what's on the board, go ahead, you're on your own. It's just building everyone from the foundations up.
Which, by the way, is one of the main misnomers, I think, about CrossFit.
Yes.
It's, you walk in, you look at the dry erase board, and good luck. and it doesn't matter how long you've been training. And I feel like there was a time when it first started exploding where that was the case at a lot of gyms. But I think what you can say about it now is it's no different than going to like an Equinox or something. Like, there's 50 trainers in there. They're not all awesome.
Exactly.
There might be 2 or 3. Nothing against Equinox trainers or any trainers, but I used to say when I was a trainer, it's almost like being a meteorologist. Like, we could be wrong every day and still get paid, as long as the client's having a good time. Like some clients are just there to have a friend for an hour, so you really don't know how good a trainer is. So I think it's fair to measure it that way. I don't think it's fair to just say that no one has any idea what they're doing and you just go in there and get hurt. Now, when you look at what you've benefited from, and then what from an athlete who is playing a different sport can do CrossFit to benefit from, when you are looking at CrossFit and you want to see how far this can take you, what are your full aspirations in doing it? Because you're competing. I mean, this is like full-time job for you right now. So like, where do you see yourself going with it?
So right now, like I said, I'm at the intermediate level, but my goal is to make it to the CrossFit Games. Like, that's the end all be all. That's the elite of this country, the CrossFit Games. Like,
that's the main goal.
That's the main goal.
Yo, if she makes it to the CrossFit Games, we're going.
Definitely.
Okay? We're definitely going. Where are the CrossFit Games this year, actually? This coming year?
I should know this. I actually don't.
Do they move it around every year?
They had it in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, for the past however many years, but I believe there might be in talks that they will move it.
Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, that's not where I thought it would be. I had no idea. I would have assumed like, LA or Florida or Texas, where like usually it's warm year round. So as a trainer now, and you said your boyfriend, give us a little bit of a rundown where he trains as well. And because I gotta be honest, I trained my wife for a little bit before we got married. That's a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. You have to have a lot of confidence in a relationship to say, I'm gonna train you, because that can really tear people apart. Give 100%. Give me a little bit of a background on that. Like, when you guys started training together, like that first session, were you like, uh-oh, like now he's telling me what to do. I don't know if I like this or not.
It's funny that you say that. When he was trying to convince me to make the switch over, that was the biggest thought in my head was, can we make this work? Like, can we separate the boyfriend, girlfriend, and become professionals inside the gym with the coach athlete, where I listen and there's no talk, that's big. And a lot of people, when I was making that switch at first, a lot of people spoke into our relationship with, you might not want to do that. It's, it might not work out. It might ruin the relationship. But if anything, we had conversations before. I think it grew the respect for the relationship way more.
Yeah.
I am a very outspoken person, so it takes a lot to bite my tongue. Not to say that every session is perfect, but I'm very reflective on when he does call me out. If, emotion comes out, instead of viewing him as the coach and seeing him as my boyfriend in that moment, we'll talk about it afterwards. I'll say my sorries, and in my head, I'm like, all right, game plan. This is what I'm going to go into next time and work on. So that's another working aspect of the whole journey together.
That's like a really mature way to look at it. I'll be honest, I was never more attracted to my wife than when I was training her. I just start my day off and she's doing squats and getting after it, and you're just like, wow, this is awesome. This is my girl. This is awesome. The last thing I wanted to talk about, because Todd Georgie is going to be on here as well, and we're talking about the really cool environment at a strongman competition. The first time you were in a CrossFit class, and then eventually a competition, tell me about the atmosphere. What was it like?
Shocking.
Yeah?
Shocking. So going back to Olympic weightlifting, it was silent, no music. When you go up to the bar, not a peep in the audience. And if I did hear, it's distracting. Like, everyone knows, as soon as someone's up to the bar, you stay quiet. CrossFit, loud music, everyone's screaming at you. The environment is so crazy. So it's funny, actually training CrossFit, I'd have Andrew come up to me screaming in my face. I'd have people like screaming my name, and I hated it. I couldn't do it because it distracted me from what I was doing. It just wasn't what I was used to. But then I did have my first CrossFit competition at Absolute a few months back. And I was like, I can't believe I've been doing all of it, like everything that I've been training for without this motivation. Like there was a event in the competition where it was, I mean, my specialty. I was going for a heavy clean and jerk after doing all this conditioning work, which is a whole different stimulus again. And the screaming was, I think, gave me the strength in that moment to get that barbell up. Whereas if it was silent and I was listening to my own thoughts, I realized in the past that could have been something, you know, that could
Sticking
have
point
separated.
For you. Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, because I think what I always assumed drew people, because there's so many former athletes that do CrossFit, and I think it's because a lot of us, like I'm retired now, it gets real quiet on that side of the border, and wanting to be around that team competitive atmosphere again, I can totally see how you get driven to go to class and you don't want to miss it. You want to be around your friends, you become family. Mark and I are going to go to a strongman competition at some point that Todd's going to run, and we're going to get like the atmosphere of it. Like when you're competing, like is it as positive as a strongman? Like in a strongman gym during a competition, everybody in there wants you to get the weight up. Like everybody, and I love the part like when you're at a gym. I remember when I was at Penn State, and you happen to be in there, and you just look over, and a volleyball girl is like going for, you know, a leg press record or something. Everyone drops what they're doing and they just start cheering for the person, right? Like that's what I miss about the strength training world. So do you get that exact same feeling when you're in a CrossFit gym? Is like everybody kind of like behind each other, or do the competitive juices start flowing so you're just trying to beat each other? Because I've never been in a CrossFit workout.
It's so interesting to me, even your competition is cheering for you. And like that's something that I have to get used to. Like competing next to someone, the workout finishes and they come up and they like dap you up and they're like, great job. And everyone genuinely wants to see you succeed, even your competition.
It's awesome.
And it was such a shock, like a culture shock for me. And I realized after my first competition, which is the only one that I did, why people stay for so long, because it really feels like a family. Like it's so community driven.
So cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of culture is so infectious. I think something I don't relate to with a lot of athletes is hoping other guys fail so that I can, you know, be first place or be better. I always want my competition to keep raising the bar so I can see how high I can go.
It's a great perspective.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've always said, like, there's two ways to get in front. You either pull the person in front of you back or you run faster, you know? And like, to hear that is pretty cool. Like, I've talked to Andrew, like, I definitely want to check out a CrossFit competition in person at some point, because I just want to be around that kind of environment.
Oh, it is electric.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Look,
like you can see it on my face. Like I'm like reliving my competition. I couldn't believe how hooked I was after it.
That's great.
So electric.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you a lot for the interview. It was awesome talking to you about this. Good luck at Wadapalooza.
Thank you.
Give the camera a little bit of social handles. Where can people find Nicki?
You could find me on Instagram at nickit.fit. And that's about it for now.
That's about it for now. But if you want to get a hold of Nicki, if you want to check out some more of the VOD, go down. If you're a subscriber, take a look at the rest of the VOD as well as the movement index that we have featuring Nicki and a bunch of other athletes. Thanks a lot for stopping by the official Beast Lab.
Thank you so much.